Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. While doing Derek's laundry, I noticed a lipstick stain on his collar accompanied by a note that read, "Don't touch him." Derek has always been a clean freak. Even I, as his wife, couldn't get too close to him. Now it seems his obsession with cleanliness is only directed at me. I stood in the laundry room for a long time, tossing the clothes into the washing machine. Then I turned and went to the study. Much later, when I came out, there was a divorce agreement on the desk. When I placed the divorce papers in front of Derek, a flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. In his mind, I probably never had the right to ask him for a divorce, considering I had been raped and was a woman with a tarnished reputation. After years of hard work, he had already climbed to the top, and to him it was only he who could propose divorce. How could I ever resist him? "What are you playing at now? Can't you stop making a fuss? I have to manage the company every day and deal with your emotions. I'm really fed up, so I'm giving you an escape. You don't have to care about my feelings anymore. Let's get a divorce." He seemed infuriated, even laughing out loud. Then he took a card from his wallet and tossed it in front of me. "Take this. Do whatever you want. Get plastic surgery or repair that thing down there, whatever. Just stop making a fuss, all right?" It was another hurtful comment, but I had long since stopped feeling pain from it. To this day, I realized he was the only one still bothered by the fact that I didn't give him my virginity. I had been raped on the night of our engagement. That night, his junior sister attempted suicide because of our engagement, and while he went to comfort her, he left me alone in the hotel. I calmed down both our parents and then went out alone to drown my sorrows, only to be raped by a madman. After that incident, Derek felt guilty and completely changed his ways, seriously taking over the family business. He even knelt at my parents' doorstep for 3 whole days and nights to get their approval to marry me. Since our marriage, he had never touched me, partly because I had a shadow over that incident and partly because he thought I was dirty. "I've already signed this. If you don't want me to sell my shares and cause your company to fail, you can drag this out. I can wait." When he heard this, his eyes widened, realizing I wasn't joking this time. His company was built with the savings my parents had painstakingly gathered over the years. The money they invested was all converted into shares, and I held those shares. This was the safety net they left for me. My shares were nearly equal to his, and if I sold them to other shareholders, the company could easily change hands. So he knew very well that when I revealed this trump card, it meant I was serious about leaving. "Can you tell me why someone wants me to leave you?" Hearing this, he let out a cold laugh, picking up a cigarette pack casually and taking one out to put in his mouth. I hated the smell of his cigarettes. I knew this very well, so every time I got close to him, he would deliberately smoke. At first, I didn't understand why he did this, but later I heard him tell his friends that he thought I smelled like that madman and needed to smoke to cover it up. "What is there, someone else, Sophia? Don't forget what happened to you in this life. Besides me, which man can accept you without hesitation? And you can accept me without hesitation after what happened back then?" I resented him and didn't understand why his junior sister was more important than me. I broke down, attempted suicide, and even faced online harassment. Many people said I went out drinking at night to seduce others. It just so happened that this time it was a madman who attacked me, and I chose to report it because I was unhappy. At that time I was truly going crazy, locking myself at home all day without saying a word, like a dead body. If it weren't for my parents' careful companionship, I might not have survived. Later I tried to accept everything, and Derek also helped me in his way, giving me the ability to love again. I thought I had overcome the biggest hurdle in my life, but I didn't expect the real challenge to come after our marriage. At first, I rejected his advances, which made him very painful. I didn't feel good either, so I actively accepted treatment. But when my treatment ended and I was finally able to touch him, he started avoiding me. In less than 2 years of marriage, he found another woman, a clean, untouched female college student. At that time, I was so desperate that I attempted suicide to force him to break up with her. While he knelt before me pleading, the words that came out of his mouth were sharper than any sword. "I just wanted to see what it feels like to be with a woman who has never been touched by a man. You can't give it to me, so can't I find it elsewhere?" It was at that moment I realized that love can change and people can lie. He could never accept me without hesitation. Afterward, we maintained a sham marriage, always pretending to be a loving couple in front of our parents, but behind the scenes, he thought even touching me was dirty. I don't want to waste any more time with you. I know your junior sister has been waiting for you. You can go find her. I won't touch the company shares. Just give me my dividends every year as usual. Seeing that I was resolute about the divorce, he angrily extinguished his cigarette and sneered. Fine, I'll grant your wish. Let's see which man can accept you. In fact, I wanted to tell him that I didn't necessarily need a man to accept me. I could live well on my own. After all, I would get a lot of money from the divorce, but I didn't want to waste my breath watching him sign the papers and set a time to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. I turned to pack my things and leave this home. Standing at the door and looking back, this home that I had carefully maintained for 5 years was just a crumbling facade. Carrying my luggage back home, my parents widened there. My parents' eyes widened at the sight of my suitcase. For years they had been on edge, fearing that one day I would be sent back. Whenever I wanted to stay with them a little longer, they were afraid that I would end up getting divorced and be hurriedly sent back. I knew very well that they saw Derek as my support, which is why they cautiously protected my marriage, even if it meant being harsh with me. It was better than leaving me with no one to rely on after they were gone. Now that I had come back with my suitcase, my dad immediately understood the situation with just one glance, while my mom clung desperately to a glimmer of hope. What are you doing back here? You didn't even tell us in advance, and you've brought so much luggage. Is this stuff for us? I dragged the suitcase inside with effort and placed it in front of my parents. At that moment I lacked the strength to speak and merely murmured, I'm getting a divorce. The tension my parents had held for so many years finally broke. Before I even finished speaking, my mom was already covering her chest and crying. How can you get a divorce, child? Do you know how much we sacrificed for you to have this marriage? How can you so easily let it go and give a chance to someone outside? My dad sat on the couch, chain-smoking one cigarette after another. Ever since my incident, his smoking had noticeably increased. You both know he has someone else outside. All these years he's never touched me. At first, his parents treated me decently, but gradually they began to see me as a disgrace to their son because I can't have children, and now they ignore me completely. I know you don't want me to get a divorce because you're afraid I'll have no one to rely on in the future. But in a family like this, do you really think there'll be support for me? Derek can't wait to kick me out so he can bring his junior sister in. My mom continued to cry, eventually slumping against me and asking, Has that woman made a scene in front of you? I shook my head to indicate that she hadn't. As for the lipstick provocations, I considered them trivial. After all, I had previously told my parents about those women provoking me, and they just told me to endure it. They even believed that as long as it didn't become public, it was all right and I should pretend not to see it. Not making it public was my parents' bottom line. They only asked Derek to keep his women discreet and not to create illegitimate children. Everything else they could turn a blind eye to. After all, my parents had invested all their savings to support Derek's business, and now they were renting a house. If I really divorced Derek, I would certainly get a sum of money, but given Derek's methods, my future wouldn't be easy. In fact, Derek had long since turned against my parents, although they kept this from me. I could still tell. Otherwise, how would Derek dare to openly keep a mistress? How can you get a divorce? Your parents have invested everything. Now that you want a divorce, what do you have besides that money? Why can't you just put your parents' minds at ease enough? If you want a divorce, then go ahead. Our daughter has suffered enough. I'll take care of her when she's back. Hearing my dad say this, the tension I had been holding on to finally broke, and I burst into tears, hugging my mom tightly. We cried so hard that even my dad's eyes turned red. If it hadn't been for the doorbell ringing, we might not have been able to stop. The doorbell rang and my dad came over, lifting my mom and me up with one hand each, telling us to tidy up while he went to open the door. However, the moment he opened the door, he raised his hand to close it, only to have a hand and a foot stick in from the outside along with a familiar voice. Uncle, don't close the door. Just listen to me. Let me see Miss Sophia again. This was Lucas, the lawyer who had represented me in my case. Despite his name sounding like an old scholar, he was actually quite young and full of passion. The man who raped me was a mental patient, and the case was very difficult. It was he who fought tirelessly in court to prove that mental patients could have autonomous awareness when committing crimes and that they must be sentenced for crimes committed with that awareness. But at the time, I was so traumatized that I couldn't recover quickly enough to provide him with more evidence and testimony, which ultimately led to the failure of the case. The mental patient was sent to 3 years in prison with a 3-year probation. It was essentially a sentence without imprisonment. He was just sent to a mental hospital for rehabilitation. Now, 5 or 6 years later, I didn't expect him to still be working on this matter. "Uncle, please let me see Miss Sophia. I know she doesn't want to recall that past, but there are still many girls facing such dangers. No one should use mental illness as an excuse to harm others. Even if it's not for the other girls, please consider Miss Sophia." Just as my dad was about to close the door forcibly, I rushed up to stop him. Through the crack in the door, I saw that passionate young man once again. I didn't know why, but the lawyers who took my case had basically all advised me to give up the prosecution and focus on seeking compensation. But my parents didn't want that. Although we weren't a wealthy family, we were reasonably well off and didn't lack that little bit of money. My parents just wanted to seek justice for me. At that time, everyone around me, including Derek, urged me not to escalate the matter. The fact that I had been raped was already embarrassing enough. They hoped I could endure it for the sake of their family's reputation. But my dad disagreed and found Lucas. From the edges, or rather Lucas sought out my parents. He assured me he would definitely get that mental patient imprisoned. Although he didn't succeed later, I still appreciate the helping hand he extended to me back then. Lucas saw me through the door crack, and his once eager hands and feet immediately withdrew. "Sophia, you're at home. Sorry, I didn't mean to." I knew what he was nervous about. After the case concluded, he had always wanted me to reopen the lawsuit. He had privately sought me out before, which had led to my depression flaring up, and I almost committed suicide. Since then, he hasn't dared to come and find me again on his own. However, given the situation today, he may have already harassed my parents many times. "You don't need to apologize. Come in and say whatever you want." At my words, a glimmer of surprise flashed in his eyes, but he still timidly glanced at my dad. When my dad saw that I had said this, he turned his head away, giving no sign at all. Seeing my dad's attitude, Lucas immediately beamed with a smile as he entered. He had even prepared shoe covers for himself, and the packaging was brand new, suggesting he hadn't been able to come into my house before. Once seated, my mom poured him a cup of tea out of courtesy, and just as he was about to speak, she sat down next to me and cleared her throat lightly. At this, Lucas didn't dare to speak and quietly sipped his tea. This scene made me want to laugh a little. In fact, I was in a pretty good mood, perhaps because I was divorced and my parents had come to understand me again. "You don't need to be nervous. Feel free to ask whatever you want." Earlier, outside the door, he had been so persistent in persuading my dad, but when faced with me, he started to stutter again. Nevertheless, with my encouragement, he eventually revealed the purpose of his visit. "I came this time to understand the details of what happened to you back then. Since the incident, no one in the family dared to bring it up, let alone ask about the details." The moment he said this, my mom's grip on my hand tightened, and even my dad clenched his fists. It's impossible to say that I wasn't hurting inside, but I bit down on my teeth and pinched myself several times to force myself not to flee. What good does it do to ask about these things? How does it help you? I've recently taken on some cases where people are trying to evade legal judgment by claiming they have mental illnesses, depression, or even schizophrenia. I must prove that even if they have these mental health issues, as long as they possess autonomous awareness, they can plan and handle matters like normal people when committing crimes, and they should be held accountable. Mental illness is not an excuse for their crimes. 5 or 6 years have passed, yet he was still as passionate as before, looking like a big boy with a head full of dreams. But every word he spoke had been tested by his own struggles. "Hey, I'll help you." When I said this, all 3 of them looked at me in surprise. My parents' eyes were filled with astonishment, while Lucas's gaze held surprise as well. But more than that, it was gratitude. In fact, I had forgotten much of what happened back then. More accurately, I had forced myself to forget. If I wanted to recall the details, I would need help from a psychologist. To this end, I had specifically brought in a friend to help me with psychological therapy. After receiving treatment, I learned how much Lucas had sacrificed over the years to prove that mental health patients could possess autonomous awareness when committing crimes. He consulted countless psychological experts, visited many senior lawyers and judges, and sifted through thousands of documents to define the boundaries for sentencing mental patients and establish a set of methods and standards for evaluation. I was also inspired by his persistence when he visited other victims. I thought my life would welcome a new turning point, but unexpectedly Derek came knocking again. One morning I stepped out to take out the trash and saw Derek standing at the entrance of my building. Upon seeing me, he tossed aside his cigarette butt and approached me, reeking of smoke. I covered my nose and stepped back 2 paces, looking at him with disgust as I asked, "What do you want? We're already divorced. I don't want to see you." Seeing my reaction, a flicker of impatience crossed his eyes. He took a deep breath and spoke to me patiently enough. "Go home. I've told you that the identity of Mrs. Derek in this lifetime can only be yours. I know Belinda has been provoking you, and I've already scolded her. Belinda is his junior, and it was for her that he abandoned me at the engagement hotel when we were engaged. Belinda had already messaged him saying she wanted to commit suicide. At that time he was preparing to leave, and I held him back tightly. Once the engagement ceremony was over, he ran out like crazy, leaving all our friends and family bewildered. Later, after my accident, he completely severed ties with Belinda, but less than 2 or 3 years into our marriage, after he was done with those innocent girls outside, he turned back to Belinda. Ironically, by that time, Belinda had already married twice and had several boyfriends, with scandalous photos circulating. The Derek who always claimed he wanted a pure girl didn't mind that he hadn't had the first bite himself. He kept Belinda around, allowing her to take my place when going out to negotiate contracts. Belinda was his wife when meeting old friends. He would let his buddies call her sister-in-law. Even when returning to his parents' home, he had to bring Belinda along. I was replaced in every aspect, leaving behind only an empty home. Derek, I don't understand how you have the face to ask me to go back. You keep telling others that I'm dirty, but I've only let that one man touch me. And what about you? You've slept with 19 college students. I don't know how many there are in bars, but you must have been with at least 30. If you're not afraid of catching something, I am. Do you think I wanted a divorce because Belinda provoked me? Or was it because I was afraid you would give me a disease?" Derek clenched his fists. If it weren't illegal to hit someone, I had no doubt he would have punched me right then. Enough. And women are not the same. What's so different? What century are we living in? And you still have such outdated views. You disgust me. Being raped is not my fault, but cheating is definitely your problem. If you don't want me to escalate this matter, then don't come looking for me again. I have plenty of naked photos of you with other women. If you continue to ruin my life, I'll make sure everyone can count every single hair on your butt. Maybe it was the first time he had heard me say something so crude. His eyes went wide and he even forgot to be angry. How can you say such things? Your parents are university professors. Is this how they taught you? If this had happened before, I definitely wouldn't have been able to curse like this, but Lucas had his own unique theory about cursing, and having spent a lot of time with him, I had picked up quite a bit. Don't do something foolish and don't come near me again. After saying that, I turned to go home while Derek was so angry behind me that he stomped his feet, threatening that I'd regret it. I thought he was just talking tough, but to my surprise he did something so despicable. He found the family of the man who had raped me years ago to come harass me at my door. "I don't care that you slept with my son. You have to come to my house and be my daughter-in-law. Don't think you can look down on my son for being sick. Just look at you running out to drink at night. Our hometown doesn't accept women like you. If it weren't for my son being a bit dim-witted, I wouldn't even want to associate with your family. Who knows if the children born in the future will have problems." Early in the morning, that mentally ill mother came to my house demanding that I go to hers and be her son's daughter-in-law. My parents were furious and took several antihypertensive pills to calm down, but it didn't help at all. When she first appeared at my door, I was furious too and went back to my room to see a message from Derek. "You'd better come home. I can't guarantee what this woman might do." Just that one message made me immediately realize that this woman had been sent by Derek. In that moment, rage surged through me, and I rushed into the kitchen to grab a knife, ready to rush out and fight. Fortunately, my parents stopped me just in time. I forced myself to calm down, but the woman outside had a shrill voice that made it impossible for me to remain composed. Before long, the police arrived, but they couldn't shut the woman up. She continued to spread rumors about my being raped. Don't pull me. Why should I be pulled? I'm here to find my daughter-in-law. This woman slept with my son. She went out drinking and was brought home by him. She's my daughter-in-law. This woman even dared to sue my son, causing him to end up in a mental hospital, and I'm not done with her. She has to come with me today. I have farm work to do, or I'll die right here. The woman was causing a scene, and after the police managed to control her, they came to knock on my door. When I opened it, I found that most of the onlookers were neighbors, and their stares made it hard for me to breathe, even causing a buzzing sound in my ears. Although the house was rented, my incident had made it to the newspapers back then, and the neighbors had recognized my parents on the very first day they moved in. Many had pointed fingers at me during that time. I couldn't even step outside my door. But as time passed, people stopped bringing it up. Now, with her shouting, they were starting to dredge up my past again. Isn't that the girl who got raped? Didn't she say she was getting married? Why is she back? How could I be back? Your wife has been with someone else. Are you happy about that? Obviously, she was kicked out by a man. I heard this girl went out drinking at midnight and ended up with a mentally ill guy. I remember that incident because he was a mental patient, not a rich, handsome guy. This girl even sued him. These remarks flooded back, pulling me into the abyss I had fought so hard to escape. In an instant, I felt as if I was back in that most painful year of my life. Just as I was about to break down, a loud cursing voice shattered the bell. You young ones, how can you talk so vile? Can't you accumulate some virtue for your own children and grandchildren? Did your toilet get clogged? And now you're spraying it everywhere? Do any of you dare to repeat what you just said? I've recorded it. I'll put it online for everyone to see what victim blaming looks like. I wonder if your sons and daughters, your relatives, would be ashamed to recognize you after this. You can defame someone with your mouths. Let me tell you, making false statements that damage someone's reputation can lead to prison time if you get convicted. No one in your family will have a good time for 3 generations. I'm a lawyer. Do you dare to spread rumors about me? You're all bullies. Today it's your neighbor in trouble, but tomorrow it could be your daughter or granddaughter. You dare to be bystanders today, but tomorrow you could be victims. And just because someone has been harmed, what does it matter? Just because she has a scar, does she not deserve to live? What century are we in? Have your brains been wrapped in the foot-binding cloth of the Qing dynasty? Lucas erupted in a tirade toward the crowd, spitting words with fervor, and not a single one of the 8 or so old ladies dared to respond as everyone fell silent. Lucas cleared his throat and lowered his voice. Everyone, let's put ourselves in her shoes. She is a victim, not an offender. Rumors can be as fierce as tigers, and those fierce tigers can harm people. Victims struggle to escape the clutches of criminals. Why can't you offer her a little more tolerance? What wrong has the victim done after being harmed? Must she also be the subject of your mockery and jokes? I'll say it again. Today's bystanders could very well be tomorrow's victims. Think about it. If this happened to your daughter, would you want others to say such things about her? It's kind of speech before Lucas had scolded people on behalf of other victims, but this was the first time he did it for me. The feeling was truly different. At that moment I finally cried out loud, collapsing to the ground and repeatedly saying, I'm not at fault. I was harmed. They are the ones at fault. My husband used this situation to hurt me, and used it as an excuse to cheat on me. He slept with dozens of women, so why do they all say he's clean? Why am I being scolded just for being hurt? I'm not at fault, they are. It's your prejudices that are wrong. As I cried out, a little girl ran out from the crowd, squatting in front of me and offering me tissues to wipe my tears. I don't know who filmed the video that day and posted it online, but it quickly caused a huge stir. Times have changed. Countless people sent me encouragement in my DMs. Many others started to share their stories, including women who had previously slept with Derek, speaking out to help me. Some women admitted they had followed Derek purely for money, openly stating their motives online. They made it clear that they were not good people, but they couldn't stand to see someone truly good get hurt. This online support made me feel incredibly warm, and also provided significant help for what we needed to do. Many people privately contacted Lucas, providing evidence of how they had been harmed by mental patients. Lucas collected all the cases, and even many colleagues cheered him on. With Lucas's help, I officially filed a lawsuit again, accusing that mentally ill person of having awareness and the ability to discern right from wrong when he assaulted me. At the same time, the video went viral. The police who had handled my case back then contacted me. It turned out they also felt there was something wrong with the case back then and had preserved all the evidence. When the case was reopened, I was shocked to discover that Belinda was actually that mentally ill person's cousin. Lucas helped me find this connection. The mentally ill person had been wandering around his village for years, and it was Belinda who brought him to the city for treatment. Lucas also found that Derek had been obstructing my lawsuit all along. At this point, with the help of my therapist, I had recalled everything that had happened back then, and one detail stood out starkly. That was when I saw Derek secretly slipping red envelopes to my lawyer. Is that really a thing? Lucas was surprised when he heard my account, then made a disdainful face. How can a lawyer do that? Isn't it just human nature? I got used to it after seeing it so much. I'm not used to it. Didn't you ask about it back then? I gave a bitter laugh. Of course I had asked, but they said it was to help me win my case, so I didn't think much of it. Looking back now, it's very likely Derek knew about Belinda's relationship with that mentally ill person. He was deliberately helping Belinda. This was the last truth I wanted to face, but as more memories came back, this matter was, as increasingly confirmed. I returned home in a daze, wondering whether I should go find Derek again to ask him once more. But he showed up at my door himself. Why are you bringing up the past again? Haven't you embarrassed me enough? Do you know how many people have laughed at me, saying that my woman slept with someone else? Come with me right now. First, let's withdraw the lawsuit and then bury this matter. Now, he didn't mind that I was dirty, grabbing my wrist and pulling me outside. I wanted to struggle and pull my hand away, but he held on tightly. I had already experienced the disparity in strength between men and women, and this wasn't the time for a hard fight. So I steadied myself, stepped on the back of his foot, and took the opportunity to pull out some chili spray from my bag, spraying it directly in his face. Derek was caught off guard and got sprayed right in the face. He sat down on the ground, covering his face and wailing. The air was filled with a sharp, spicy smell. I didn't know whether to feel completely disappointed in this man, or whether it was the chili spray that made me start to cry. But deep down I was very firm, grabbing his collar and questioning him. Tell me, you know Belinda is related to that mentally ill person, right? The red envelopes you gave the lawyer weren't meant to help me win the case. You just wanted them to let that mentally ill person go, right? You married me out of fear that if I died, the matter would get bigger and implicate Belinda, right? At that moment he couldn't say a word, but I still got the answer I wanted because Belinda appeared. As I gripped Derek's collar and questioned him, suddenly an inexplicable force from the side shoved me aside, causing my forehead to slam into the corner of the wall, bringing a dull pain. You crazy woman. What are you doing? He's your husband, not your enemy. How can you treat him like this? As she spoke, Belinda pulled out a water bottle and poured it over Derek's face to help him clean up. This was the first time I had seen Belinda up close since they got together. Belinda had changed dramatically. Back then, she could only be considered a pure little flower, thin and frail, dressed in nearly faded clothes paired with a pair of worn-out canvas shoes. Her innocent appearance would evoke a sense of pity in anyone who looked at her. At school, Belinda met Derek, and after falling in love at first sight, they clung to each other until graduation. Later, she worked at Derek's company. Since Belinda was restless, I drove her away after causing a scene several times, and the scandal at my engagement ceremony was Belinda's revenge on me. Now this woman was dressed in designer clothes, voluptuous and beautiful, with a designer bag worth the price of a house. She was nothing like that innocent little flower from before. So what if she had changed? Even if this woman were as dirty as mud, Derek still loved her. Since they loved each other, they should bear the hardships together. Belinda's wrist pinned her to the ground, my knee pressed against her chest, forcing her to look at me. Answer my question from earlier. Is it true or not? If you dare to lie to me, I could kill you right now. According to your logic, it's not a crime for a mentally ill person to kill. I wasn't trying to scare Belinda. Ever since that incident years ago, I began learning self-defense techniques and always kept self-defense items on hand. Among them were chili spray and a utility knife, and at that moment I was brandishing the utility knife, pressing it firmly against Belinda's neck. Belinda was frightened. She knew I had schizophrenia, and if pushed to the edge I could actually kill. Derek wanted to come to her rescue, but the burning pain in his face made it impossible for him to discern his surroundings, and he helplessly shouted at me, "Sophia, don't go crazy. If you hurt Belinda, I won't let this go. Now it's me who won't let this go. Tell me the answer." Belinda was completely terrified. I could even smell the odor of urine. She cried and told me, "Yes, my senior brother knows everything. It was me who asked him to help save my brother." "Then it was you who sent your brother to find me?" "Yes, I had my brother come to rape you. I thought that if you were gone I could marry my senior brother, but in the end my senior brother still married you. You won in the end." At that moment, I felt the suffocating pressure on my heart dissipate instantly. It was also ridiculous to feel so wronged, realizing that such a laughable reason had ruined my beautiful life. Having gotten the answer I wanted, I released both of them and took out a small voice recorder. Carrying a voice recorder was a habit Lucas had instilled in me. Thank you both for your cooperation. I finally have the crucial evidence. Seeing the voice recorder in my hand, Belinda understood she had dug her own grave and yelled at me frantically, "Don't get your hopes up. Your recording is useless. You only said that to threaten me. I'm a mentally ill person. What threat can I pose to you? Can two sane people not handle one mentally ill person? Just like your brother argued back then. Mentally ill patients don't distinguish right from wrong and lack normal logic. All the questions I asked were in an unconscious state while you were conscious, so your previous statements can be considered as statements made before an unconscious person. Recorded without consciousness makes them even more reliable. As for the harm I inflicted on you just now, it can be deemed invalid. After all, a mentally ill person can't be punished for hurting someone. If I committed a crime, your brother would be the first to go to jail. I'm afraid those two never imagined that the tactics they used against me would ultimately backfire on themselves. With the case reopened, Belinda's brother was sent to prison and refused medical treatment outside. As far as I knew, Belinda's only male relative was her mentally ill brother. Now that he was in prison because of Belinda, she would become the scapegoat in her family. Every day, relatives went to her residence to throw rotten eggs, crying and making a scene, disrupting her normal life. But that wasn't the end of it. Belinda's biggest reliance was Derek. The shares I held were sold to other shareholders at a low price. When Derek learned I intended to sell my shares, he sought me out again, hoping I would transfer them to him at a low price to secure his position. I initially didn't want to sell them to him, but he was so persistent that I was afraid of pushing him too far. Besides, if his offer was reasonable, I might as well take his money. So he scheduled a time to meet me, but when I arrived I realized he had set up a banquet for me. As I walked in, various paper flowers exploded into the air. In my stunned state, I saw all our mutual friends standing in front of me, each holding a rose. The scene was reminiscent of when he proposed to me. I was thinking about what kind of trick Derek was pulling this time when he appeared in a suit holding a bouquet of roses. Sophia, do you recognize this scene? I know I was wrong before. I didn't cherish you properly. I promise I will make it up to you. Can we try again? Seeing the scene again made me feel sick. I didn't recall our previous proposal fondly. Instead, another memory surfaced. After marrying him, I actively sought treatment. The doctor advised me to visit places with our beautiful memories, and the first place that came to mind was this restaurant. However, when I finally gathered the courage to enter the restaurant, I saw Derek celebrating someone else's birthday with another girl. I went mad and tore my way over, using all my strength to defend my marriage, but Derek slapped me down to the ground. The buzzing in my ears left my mind in chaos. I could clearly hear Derek scolding me. Can you stop acting crazy? Did that mentally ill person transmit his illness to you when he raped you? At that moment, I felt as if I were being stripped naked and exposed in front of a crowd. How could he say I was raped in front of so many people? That day, I returned home unable to bear the blow and attempted suicide. My parents learned of my situation and confronted Derek, hitting and scolding him until he knelt and begged for my forgiveness. Perhaps from that moment on, it was destined that we wouldn't go far together. Derek, what are you doing? I just want to start over. I don't want to miss you again. Please give me another chance. I admit I was a jerk before, but believe me, I will treat you well from now on. We grew up together, we have so many years of friendship. You were there for me during the toughest times. Trust me, give me another chance. I couldn't help but sneer as I scanned the faces of the people who had come today. They were all our mutual friends, childhood companions who grew up together with highly overlapping social circles. After getting married, I had little contact with these friends, so they had no idea of the grievances I had suffered. But it was okay today. I could tell them all one by one with a smile. I took out my phone, pulled up a video, and handed it to the restaurant owner nearby. This restaurant had a big screen often used for proposals, where many couples would showcase their happy moments. Unfortunately, what I was playing today wasn't so pleasant. I played the scene from when he had brutally assaulted me in the restaurant, especially the part where he said that I was raped by a mentally ill person and thus caught the illness myself. I looped that part repeatedly. Derek's face changed dramatically as he saw this, and he shamefully lowered his head. All our friends stood frozen, shocked by the scene. Derek, this is what you did right here in this restaurant. What's wrong with you? How could you say something like that? No one wants such things to happen, and yet you use those words to hurt others. You're still here proposing to Sophia, aren't you? Disgusting. In an instant, all our mutual friends began to scold Derek. He bowed his head in shame, unsure how to face the situation. I had originally wanted to give him a little face, but it seemed unnecessary now. You're all our mutual friends, and I know you've been deceived by Derek. I've never explained what happened to me back then. The reason I got into trouble is that after our engagement, Derek rushed to find his junior apprentice, and the person who harmed me was her brother. To help her brother escape responsibility, Derek had brainwashed me and prevented me from pursuing legal action for years. He had been cheating, and I had kept quiet to maintain my marriage. I can also tell you that he swindled my parents of all their assets. If you're my friend, please help me spread the word in our circle. If you want to know what Derek did to me, you can ask me later. I can share my wounds again and again. I just ask for one thing. Please don't associate me with him anymore. Having said that, my friends naturally understood who was in the wrong, and several of them threw the flowers they were holding at Derek. After that day, Derek almost lost his temper. My situation had already caused quite a stir, and now he wanted to reconcile with me, which only escalated the situation. Derek approached me again for reconciliation, making Belinda very anxious. She even ran to my doorstep crying and making a scene. I couldn't get rid of her, so I had no choice but to call the police. Derek was mentally and physically exhausted from being tormented by Belinda. After going around in circles, he felt I was still a better option, so he came running back to me. His method was rather cliché, standing outside my apartment building pleading, but everyone already knew what had happened to me, and the residents of the community were furious when they saw him. Many kids, guided by their parents, even took water guns to spray him. During that time, I never stepped outside. I couldn't control where he stood, so he could stay there, but he didn't last long because the rainy season was approaching. Before the rain even started, just 2 thunderclaps sent him running away in a panic. Seeing this, my dad came home spitting angrily. This Derek has no sincerity in his pleas. It hasn't even rained yet, and just 2 thunderclaps scared him off. Seems like he's done too many guilty things and is afraid of being struck by lightning. Hearing my dad's words, my mom and I burst into laughter. Due to Derek's incessant harassment, I guessed he didn't have much going on lately, so I decided to give him some trouble. I had once said that I would make sure every hair on Derek's rear was accounted for, and I did just that. Even though my account got suspended several times, the reason was for spreading inappropriate content, but it didn't matter. I could print it out and take it to the company. After all, I had a diagnosis of schizophrenia, and even if the police came, they would just lecture me and forbid me from distributing adult materials. They could arrest me, but there would still be a big lawyer to bail me out. No one could outsmart this lawyer in a verbal duel, and very few could compare to his ability to insult. Once, I caused such a commotion at the company's entrance that Derek had the security throw me out. Lucas arrived just in time and stood at the company entrance shouting. Lucas really knew how to shout. He stood there for 5 hours without stopping, directly scaring away all of Derek's major clients. Derek's online reputation was thoroughly ruined, and the company's image deteriorated significantly. Seizing the opportunity, shareholders who were taking over my shares banded together with others to ask Derek about his blunders, which caused the company considerable losses. To cover that gap, he had to sell his shares. Otherwise, the other shareholders had the right to sue him for compensation. At this point, Derek didn't dare get involved in lawsuits anymore, and had to obediently hand over his shares, being collectively kicked out by several shareholders. Watching him leave the company dejectedly, I went to demand my debt with the divorce agreement in hand. When we signed the divorce agreement, he was so proud and arrogant that he didn't even read it carefully. I took almost half of his assets and even planned to sue Belinda for half of the assets back. After all, half of what Derek spent on her came from me. With this big lawyer's help, I could scare them enough just with words, not to mention going to court. In the end, to keep his current car and house, Derek put all his savings on the line for me while the loans for the house and car were still unpaid. The rest was up to him. Without money, Belinda, who was used to a lavish lifestyle, found it hard to adapt. The two of them argued loudly every 3 days and had minor disputes every 2 days. Not to mention, Belinda's relatives frequently showed up at their doorstep. This led to Derek often fighting with Belinda, and during one argument, he hit her in a fit of anger. Belinda took all the valuable items from their home and disappeared. Without a trace, Derek thought that without Belinda, his life would return to normal. But he quickly found out that job hunting was an uphill battle. He faced numerous setbacks, and without any financial backing, even his parents refused to help him. Ultimately, Derek fell into despair and started living a life of excess. Later, it was rumored that his health deteriorated, and he took a large amount of male enhancement drugs, eventually dying on the bed of a street prostitute. It was unfortunate for that street woman, who was so scared that she was sent back home. Ironically, the street prostitute turned out to be from the same hometown as Belinda. After she returned, she started live streaming her tragic life online, specifically targeting Belinda's misfortunes. It was said that Belinda had previously mocked her, and now seeing Belinda down on her luck, she was overjoyed. Belinda was captured by her relatives and forced to work like a slave for her brother's family. And I mean literally, she worked the fields without the help of oxen or machines, relying solely on human labor. According to her relatives, with the men gone, someone had to take their place in the fields, and since it was her, if they were displeased, they would whip her. As for claims of human rights abuses, they didn't exist at all. Belinda supposedly had a mental illness and enjoyed working in the fields, according to what her parents told the media. As for Belinda's brother, a mentally unstable rapist in prison, he was undoubtedly at the bottom of the social hierarchy, and his future was grim. Meanwhile, I was about to embark on a new future, and of course I had a big lawyer by my side.